What's up guys, I'm Holly from The Run Experience. Today we're talking internal and external hip rotation and why both of these matter so much to your run form. If you are someone dealing with a lot of repeating injuries, recurring injuries in your running, there's a good chance you're not running as efficiently as you could be. So running injuries or little aches and pains that come up in your training can come from so many different places, and we don't always know where they come from. For example, I dealt with recently a lot of shin pain, which I'd never really had before. And instead of just focusing on my shin, I started to explore other areas up and down to understand if it was maybe a run form flaw. This is what brought me to realizing how important internal and external rotation in the hip is to our running. For me, just personally, I actually come from a ballet background. I spent 20 plus years working solely on turnout and keeping my feet as turned out as they could possibly be all the way from the hips, and that was where I spent all of my time. There was no talking about anything else than that. So now I find myself trying to run, several miles at a time, keeping my feet pointed straight ahead, which is what we want, and that doesn't feel natural to me. So I started noticing that little aches and pains, injuries started to come up as a result of me not having that practice. In the next section, we'll talk about why the balance of the internal and external rotation is so important to your running. So what does external rotation look like, and what does internal rotation look like in relation to your running and how you move? External rotation, a great example would be when you're just doing a simple air squat. Can you press your knees out so they're laterally moving almost past your feet when you go down? So I'll just show you a couple examples here. As I go down, am I able to press my knees out to the side as I squat down and still go low enough to come back up? This will not happen if you don't have that kind of external rotation. As you're starting to squat down, your knees might even cave a little bit as you start to go. You'll notice you won't even go as low because the hips don't have the space. But if I can press out, I'm finding that I do have a decent amount of external rotation there. Also in that squat position, that's protecting the knees, that's keeping you nice and screwed into the ground so you're supported by those glutes in the squat. So we tested that external rotation in a squat position, which happens to also require our hips to flex. So as I go down, I'm actually flexing at the hips in order to press those knees out. Those are working in combination. Internal rotation can be tested in a more extended position of the hips. So when my legs are swinging behind me when I'm running, can I find that correct degree or adequate degree of internal rotation? And a good test for this is a simple leg swing. So I stand on that one supporting leg, and what I'll do is just start small, just kind of swinging that leg forward and back, and start to notice what my leg and feet, what it all wants to do naturally. If I'm lacking some internal rotation or some of that degree is missing, I'll start to notice that the foot's turning out, especially as it swings behind. And because we're putting that hip in extension, that is my compensation. So I start to swing that foot out just so that I can find myself supported in some way. But what I need is to increase that range of motion in that internal rotation. So we tested that internal and external rotation. Hopefully you're getting some sort of sense of what you are struggling with and where you need to work on. So I'm going to give you my favorite strengthening and stretching exercises to work on both, because at the end of the day, we want to find neutral so that in our running, we're using our strongest, largest muscles and we're not compensating with those smaller ones leading to injury along the way. So again, as you guys know, I am struggling with my internal rotation and making that a little bit larger range of motion there. So I'm gonna start with that one. There's something simple you can do in a lunge position. We'll actually start with a few of those leg swings though to kind of find that position. You'll just stand on that leg, start with a couple swings here, and then I'm actually just gonna have you swing back into a lunge, keeping this knee right over the ankle. And we'll drop down at first just to kind of tap. If you have a mat under you, you can kind of let that knee go. And what we're trying to do here is find that our hips are square to the front. So if I've a lot of external rotation, I'll find that I'm more comfortable to kind of spin out here and I'm not really facing the front anymore. This leg's kind of swinging out, my foot's swinging out like that. But if I keep everything front, that's what we're going for. So nice and neutral here. And then what I can do is just a couple split lunges here, just repeating. So I'm just gonna go up and down using kind of the flexion and extension of my knee to raise and lower off this mat. I'm not doing a ton with this front leg, more just stabilizing myself with it. And I'm really trying to keep that hip going forward, because if it swings out again, we're not working on that internal rotation. So just like this, you can do a few like that. Outside of the strengthening, we can spend some time at the bottom of that lunge to stretch. So we can go a little bit deeper into this, and I can actually twist even. And as long as I'm anchoring with that back foot, maybe even against a pole is ideal, you can work on really finding that position with the knee coming in. In the next clip, we're gonna show you how to work on that external rotation if that's something you're struggling with. So now to improve the degree of external hip rotation, we're gonna use squats as well as a pigeon stretch. The squat is something I already showed before, but it's a great way to find kind of how those feet screw into the ground and how you can press the knees out to really find stability in those hips, which will then translate to your running. So just that simple squat position, you're gonna find a little bit wider than hips width stance. Those toes will be pointed straight ahead if you can, and you're just gonna start to sit back, almost like a seated flex position, and pressing those knees out. You'll just start nice and slow just to start to find that. Again, the max you can press out with those knees is what we're looking for. As you stand up, you're gonna squeeze the glutes at the top, hips come forward. So just a simple squat motion. Again, this is an air squat. We're not using any weight, but you could always hold, kettlebell, have a barbell on your shoulders, things to make this weighted or a little bit more challenging so you can find better ways to press those knees out is great. That's one way to strengthen that external rotation position. To stretch and just find a little bit more opening in those hips, I like that pigeon pose. So I'm gonna come down to this mat here. Lots of ways you can do this and a lot of ways to modify. You can always do this raised up on a bed, but I'm gonna be down on the mat today. So what I'm gonna do is find, and again, I have a lot of this already, so if this looks a little hard for you, that's totally normal. You're gonna look for almost a 90-degree angle with that front leg in front of you, flexing that foot. And starting up here is gonna be a little bit easier. You can kind of support yourself as you start to get more comfortable, just breathing to come a little bit lower. Using your hands for support here, you can actually just move around in this stretch. And then when you're finding those tight spots across the outside of the hip, you can kind of breathe and exhale there and just hold that static pose. So this will feel tight at first, but it does tend to open up. Again, I'm dropping that back hip down, not letting that spin out. That ruins everything we worked on in the lunge. But just kind of finding this pigeon pose so that we can stretch the outside of the hip. For the lunges, the squats, going for a set of 10 on those internal rotation lunges. The squats a set of 10 as well, through a couple sets. For the stretches, the pigeon and that back lunge stretch, holding about 2 minutes per side is ideal, maybe even a little up from there. You can throw this in your routine as you see fit, modify as you need, but those are great starting points for finding neutral. We got so specific with those hips today because I believe there's such a big driving force behind your running and just your daily activity in general. For me personally, I have struggled with this recently and really learned a lot about how much they control. For me, I was dealing with a shin splint, and it turned out that that was tracking all the way up to my hip and the fact that I just don't have that internal rotation. So as I work on that more, I've been able to find a more neutral and straightforward running position, those toes tracking straight ahead, which has led to less pain, hopefully less injury down the road, and more understanding of how I can use both to better my running. Hopefully you can find something in this video that will work for you, something that kind of sparks that conversation about how you can work on things outside of just running, and you will find much success down the road. Guys, if you're looking for more ways to expand that training outside of just this run technique practice, we have this awesome training club that you can join even with a 7-day free trial. The link is down below. We've got all of our best programs in there for you to try out. If you liked this video, make sure you hit that like button down below. And if you have any comments or questions or something in this video didn't quite make sense, we are happy to answer all of those in the comments. And lastly, make sure you subscribe to our channel. We have brand new videos coming about all things running, not just run technique, run form, all the way to your marathon training, your nutrition, everything in there. And we want you to catch those videos, so subscribe. Otherwise, I will catch you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching.